Welcome to Small Talk with Kenya and Dawn. I'm Dawn.
And I'm Kenya.
So today we are going to be talking about living with an ungodly husband. That is something that I would say we both dealt with, living with an ungodly husband. I can say for my part that my husband grew up in church, right? Went into the military, completely left away from church, and he's told this story millions of times before. He said when he left home, he left the church, he left everything behind. So he was living a very ungodly life, right? So for myself, and I think I've even talked about this before, when I decided that I really needed Christ again, I was at kind of like my wit's end, and I really needed to have some relief in that area.
Yeah.
So I came back to Christ before my husband did. So when I decided to make that move back, and I would get up and go to church in the morning, he was arguing with me, fussing, looking for a reason to not go to church, try to deter me from going as well. So I can say he was definitely an ungodly man at the time, and of course we'll fast forward to where he is now, and we all know what he does, but and we can get into that a little bit later on too.
Okay.
But I can say it was a struggle.
Yeah.
After I came into Christ, it was a bit of a struggle for us. What about you?
Absolutely. Kind of, sort of, we have the same story. My husband grew up as a child in church, but as a young adult, no, he didn't. He just never had a desire to go to church. He never talked about it or anything. But he also didn't want me to go. So, but I would get up, I would get the kids ready, we would go to church, and he would say, well, why you gotta go today, and all this, that, and the other. And even then, I had the wrong reason for doing it as well.
Okay.
I just knew that was the right thing to do, or the thing I was supposed to be doing, because at the time, I didn't really understand relationship. So I didn't argue with him, but I mean, it was still a struggle.
Right.
And even when he was home, he didn't want to participate or be involved in it.
That was hard because, and with him being gone, my husband being gone, being overseas, and it was just me and my kids.
Yeah. And
I just felt overwhelmed. I felt extremely stressed out. And that's when I said, okay, God, I need you to take over. I need you to fix this. I need you to fight this fight for me, because I don't have any more fight left in me. So everything, of course it worked itself out. But then he came back into the picture after being gone 6 months, 8 months, somewhere around that time. And when he came back into the picture again, I was 100% in, and he was 100% out.
Yeah.
So we went through a lot of transition and a lot of ups and downs, but you said something that was key. I didn't argue with him either, because I knew it was a trick from the enemy to try to get me to step back from what I had already moved forward to. So the arguments in the morning, I just had to learn to ignore them. Was it easy? No, it was not. Especially when you have a strong personality. And you want to be able to say something, and it's not even that you're just standing your ground. But then again, it kind of is standing your ground, I guess, is I can say it that way as well, because you're not going to fall back from where you came from. So what were some of the things that you did besides not arguing? What was something else that you did?
Well, in the beginning, I did argue.
Okay.
And I remember trying to give a reason to why I was doing it, but I don't think my reasoning with him ever kind of stuck.
Okay.
And I remember being at work, and I would just complain to somebody that is very near to my heart. That's my grandma. But I used to talk to her about those things because she had similar issues. She was involved in a lot of ministries, and she would tell me her husband would complain because she left work and she always had to go down to that church. And I told her, I said, I'm just tired of arguing about God. I mean, He's big enough for all of us.
Right.
And even then, when I said it, this was so many years ago, I really didn't understand. And she said to me one day, we were at work, we were talking about it. And she said, stop arguing with that man and pray for him. And at the time, I was like, is that simple? And it literally was that simple.
Yeah.
Because once I started to pray for him, he started to change. I was no longer trying to change him. And then later I understood it was God changing him. It was me interceding for him and God doing all the heavy lifting, because I was over it.
And wasn't it just a relief?
It was so much of a relief. And you know, it really was a trajectory in our life. It really started some things. Now it took some time to get to where we are now, of course. But I mean, just small changing of, instead of why you going down to the church, what time y'all going to church? He still had a little attitude, but you know.
Yeah, and it changes. It's a process.
Yeah.
A lot of things we would love for it to just, we snap our fingers and then it's over and done with, and you know, whatever we were supposed to be doing, we just fall in line and we do it.
Right.
But things aren't like that.
No.
Things are a process, and a lot of times people have to see things before they believe it. They're not just going to automatically take your word for it or just go along with it because you said so. People have to see things. And I also think as we were living with ungodly men, they had to see Christ in us.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, you made me think of something. I remember when we first started the Monday Night Bible Study.
Okay.
Now, this was not very long ago to me, but it was in 2017.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's been that long.
And I remember I would always go to the dining room because it's away from everybody else. And I would always sit at the farthest end of the table. And I would sit there and we would be on the Bible study line and I'm just in the Word. And the more I got into the Word, the more excited I got about the Word. And I was like, the more I understood it, the more things start unfolding for me. And I remember when he has to walk through the dining room to get to his man cave. And I remember he used to walk down there and kind of cut his eye like he was rolling his eyes. And I was like, Jesus, I got to hide you from this man. I mean, what's really going on? Not even understanding at the time. It was the enemy trying to deter me from doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I also remember during that time, after I got all this advice and started understanding the Word and start understanding, it was right after we did the study on spirits. And, and after I really understood that, I remember praying over some oil. I was home by myself one day, and I remember going through anointing my whole house. And I started at the front door, went all the way to the garage, and I opened the back door in the garage, and I remember telling Satan, you will get out of my house, and you will never return to my home. And I promise you, after that, it was no longer a battle. It was more so of a compromise. He didn't come by and cut his eye at me or shake his head or any of those things. He started to ask, well, what y'all talk about last night? You know? So it's a process, and it's not for the faint.
No.
It truly is a process you have to go through. That's a good word for it.
It is. It is definitely a process. I've seen that for myself. And when I'm getting the girls ready, of course we got 3 girls, and they were a lot younger at the time, so I got to get myself up first, right? And this was just my routine. Get myself up, get myself dressed, cook breakfast, then I go and get the girls up, right? Because I got all the other stuff out the way. So I'm getting up, cooking breakfast, doing all those things, go and get the kids, right? And then when I start to get the kids ready, he would pop up. What are you doing? Going to church. What does it look like I'm doing? Well, what are you doing that for? And then I said, don't say nothing. Don't say anything. Don't even feed into it. And he would get up, and he was big, you know, like lifting weights and stuff. And even now his feet are just like heavy through the house.
Yeah.
So he'd be stomping through the house, fussing about this. Did you make me something to eat? Yeah, I sure did. I made breakfast for everybody. I just did not include you. Of course I did. Right. And I didn't feed into any of it. Mm-hmm. He would come and sit in, this is what I'm saying, it's a process, because he would come into church and sit all the way in the back. Mm. And you know how you can just feel, it was like somebody's eyes were burning on the back of my head. And I said, what in the world? So I turned around, I said, oh, look who showed up, right?
Won't he do it?
Won't he do it? So he would come in. Then he moved up. Now, and we didn't even ride together. Of course, we didn't ride together to church. But then he started coming up closer and closer. And the process really came to a peak when we got a note from our pastor. And said, I need to see you two in my office after service. Mm-hmm. And of course, when you haven't been back there before, you're like, what? Exactly. What did I do? Right. You know, I'm in here. I come to church every week. Okay. I'm on time. What's going on? Like, what does he need to talk to me about? Right. But we were neighbors, so it didn't give me too much like worry, but then again it was like it made me question like what's going on. And he said, I want you two, when we went back there, and he said, I want you two to do the audio video. And we said, okay, sure. But he started coming, his consistency started, it kicked in. Okay. And of course, with him being a military man, he's like, okay, I get an order, I got to carry it out. Okay. So that was the beginning of his process. Man. Okay. Yeah. So, and that was really, for us as adults, that was our first ministry. Really? Even together, that we did together. Yeah. And we were, what do they call them? CMEs, Christmas, Mother Day, Easter. Those, we were those type. We would go to church on Christmas, Mother's Day, and Easter. But we began to come in, you know, and it was regular. Okay. But up until that time, it was hard. Yeah. In certain ways. It was hard when you're not on the same page as far as ministry wise and then serving wise. Right. So living with an ungodly man at that time, it had its challenges. Yeah. But it also drove my faith even stronger because I knew the things that I had to pray for and pray those things out of my husband. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. And so we began our ministry really right there. And it just it's gone to where it is, you know, right now. But I remember because it was so many different things that were happening and going on, and I said, I really want him to change. And I want his life to change. I want his lifestyle to be better. I want his quality of life to be better. Right. And I want our marriage to be better. And I remember it was April of 2004. Wow. Yeah. And I remember being in my room, in our bedroom, and I remember praying. And I remember when I closed my eyes, it was 11 o'clock. I'll never forget it. When I when I opened my eyes, it was 11:45. Wow. I didn't realize I had been down there that long. And I know a lot of people, they're on their knees a lot longer, but it was just that, it was specifically for him. I didn't incorporate anybody else. Yeah. I prayed my heart to God regarding my husband. And the next thing I know, he changed from an ungodly man to a godly man. And when I tell you I left it, when I got up off my knees that night, I left it. And in doing so, I even forgot about it.
Wow.
I had forgot when the changes started to occur. I said, "What is he doing?"
You asked.
I asked, but I forgot.
Yeah.
Because I completely gave it over to God.
Yeah.
And so things started to change. Stuff started to move. The whole atmosphere started to shift. And I said, and by this time we left Georgia and we were in Florida. And I said, "Oh goodness, who is he faking? Who's he faking for?"
In a whole different state.
Whole different state. But it was real.
Yeah.
It was something that was real. So, and I'm going to say this, and we'll continue to talk about things. But if you do have a man that is ungodly, pray for him.
Yeah. Because I wanted to go back to something you said. Some things you wanted to pray out of him. Because for me, in marriage, it was hard for me. I felt like I had double duty, trying to keep a balance of keeping him from being upset because me and the kids at church are I'm going to do this, and to keep balance in my marriage. That was a lot of work.
Yes.
That's extra work. And if I want to study my word, I should be able to just do that. But when you have that conflict, it takes a lot of energy to keep from arguing or to argue. It's such a big balance. And for anybody who may be going through this, to remember that it's God that does the heavy lifting for us.
That's right.
So if we pray for them and pray some things out of them, because it's just the enemy trying to work against, trying to tear the marriage apart, trying to keep them from building a relationship with Christ. And all of those things. Sometimes we have to take those things to God to get out of our husbands.
Yes.
And we are their help me. So where they are weak at, we need to make sure that we're praying for that strength or to get those things out of them.
That's right. And one thing, another thing to incorporate in your prayer is the discernment.
Oh, yes.
To see what it is.
Yes.
Ask the Holy Spirit to reveal it to you.
And he will.
And he will show you. He'll show you in ways that you probably never even thought about it before.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you something else. It'll come from somebody else's conversation about your husband. And you say, "Oh,
no,
I didn't know that." Now I do know.
Yeah.
So now I know that I know what to pray for. I know what to ask God to remove from him. And guess what? And now I the formula.
Ooh, there it is.
I know the formula now.
Right.
I didn't know it back then, but I know the formula now,
it works.
and it works.
Yeah,
that we'll get off of that another time, but that it works when you ask God to give you revelation, reveal those things, show me what it is, show me the areas that my husband needs to be changed in. Yes, drop those weaknesses, give him that strength that he needs to be a better man, to be a better husband, to be a better father, a son, whatever it may be. Ask God to reveal those things to you so that you know what area to pray for. But I'm going to say this too. When you're saying it for him, say it for yourself.
Oh, yes, because
don't leave yourself
we
out.
See fault in everybody else.
We can see things, but say, "Hey, where's my weakness at?
Yeah.
Show me something that I'm not aware of." And don't get mad when he does.
Absolutely, because it's going to be revealed.
Oh yeah, it's coming out. It's definitely coming out, and that's the part where we may not get. We don't want that spanking, but that's the one that we really need. Is because, and we can't expect for someone else to do better and to be better, and we're not willing to put that same charge on ourselves.
Absolutely, 100%.
Is that something that you've encountered before?
Yes. And I had a thought too. Oh man, it escapes me. I was thinking about when you were talking about praying specifically for those things, and of course, it's the enemy's job to tear us apart, and but we have to remember that everything that God made was good.
That's right.
And marriage is one thing that is hard enough by itself than to have all those added things in it that we can simply take before Him. And we have to be careful because we'll find ourselves complaining about our spouse to someone else.
Yes.
And we don't know what doorways we're opening for the enemy to enter by doing that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's easy for me to go in my secret place, you know, and fall on my knees and talk to my God. Because you know, He hears my prayers because I'm going to Him. You know, my prayers are important to Him. So it's easier for me to do that. But we have to be careful because in doing that, we're protecting our husbands as well.
That's right.
Let's make sure that we're not just complaining about what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And be careful about complaining and be careful who you complain to.
That part.
Everybody does not want to see your marriage successful.
Absolutely.
There are, do you know how it feels to know that somebody is praying against you?
I do.
That is something that I've dealt with. And honestly, and I thought, and it was from one person, but I also know now that it was another person. Two people that I know, and I know for sure that they were praying against my marriage. And when it's somebody that you're close with, someone that you have regular conversations with, or you know, you thought that you had a good, you know, rapport, and to know that somebody is actually praying against your marriage, that is something that's hurtful. And to top it, and to put the icing on the cake, then when you got a husband that's ungodly, and then you got somebody that's praying, that mixture right there, goodness gracious,
Even tougher.
It's very hard. It's very, very hard, and it makes the fight even harder. But it makes it hard when we do it in the natural. When we recognize it, and that's why I say pray for revelation. Ask God to give you the discernment, because when He gives it to you, then you see what the areas, you see what those areas are, and then you say, oh, wait a minute, let me tighten up here. Thank you for showing it to me. Now let me pray this back to you. Let me pray some scriptures back to you. Pray those things back. Let me pray over my household. Let me pray over my marriage. But God, you fix things. You take care of this. You clean up this mess that is sitting before us. I can't do it.
And He will also, in cleaning up all that mess, He'll give you strength enough to be able to sit beside that person and have a conversation like you don't even know it's there.
That's right. That's right.
And that was one of the hardest things I've had to do.
Yeah.
Because I'm normally not that kind of person. You know, I'm one of those people, I need you to understand that I see you. And I don't have a problem saying I see you. But God has shown me, my granddaddy used to tell me this all the time, and it was just words. He used to say, Sugarfoot, you can't show everybody your hand.
Cannot.
I didn't, you know, it went right over my head. But in seeing that, and the strength that the Holy Spirit has given me and sat with me beside people who I know did not want me and my husband to be together, and to sit and smile in my face, it was nothing but Him.
Yeah.
Because He has transformed. But the flip side of that is, it feels so good. And to me, it seems like the harder they pray, the closer we get. And I'm like, oh, okay, Jesus, I see you.
I see you.
I got you.
When you can recognize it.
Yes.
And then you know, and let me tell you something else. I haven't even revealed it to him who it was.
I don't think I've ever said anything.
I haven't even told him who it was.
I don't think I did.
And I'm not gonna tell him.
Yeah.
So if you're listening,
we see
you won't know this one.
We see you.
Yeah, you definitely won't know this one, but it is something that is so hurtful.
Yeah.
And and honestly, it's just something that is just not fair.
It's not.
It's not fair. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to break here.
Okay.
We have so much more to talk about with this.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to discuss some of the characteristics of an ungodly man.
Ooh.
We're going to see where that takes us. Okay. So please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so that you know when Small Talk with Kenya and Dawn comes on, which is every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. And also leave us a comment on the video. So until then, have a great day.